that is really looking in the financial market to see how we can come rooted in this sense of unity in diversity. We'll be here together, and please, Ben, bring in Sarah McCrum. I will be co-hosting with her. I'm Voorhoeve of the Hague Center and co-producer of World Unity Week, and really excited for us to be exploring all these new ways of working together, as that is our goal here. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, and welcome. It's really nice to see some very familiar faces and some unfamiliar names as well. I am co-founder of the Love To group and Love to be Bright Green, and I'm here with Anne-Marie and some friends in a conversation. We've been having a conversation for several months now, and we thought it would be really interesting to extend the conversation into this more public place. And I think Anne-Marie might introduce a little bit about what that's about.
Yes, so we are together with friends, a group of Dutch pioneers who have led the way for decades in investing in the environmental improvement, at a time also when most of the financial world, and perhaps even the whole world, wasn't really interested. I've known some of them really for a long time, or have followed them when I was younger, as an example of how we could really come into a world that is serving all life forms and not just a few. So we've been acting as a sounding board for Sarah and for her partner, Tim Bennett in Australia, who have been developing a new system for bringing financial reward to regenerative farmers. And for me personally, I'm seeing that also as an example of how we can also extend that to other marketplaces. Before we actually start to introduce and to speak about why we're here and what's our next step, and to get an update, because every week so many things happen, maybe it's good to just show a short little 3-minute movie that explains what the Bright Greens are about, and then we will continue. So Ben, if you could please put on the video, and after that we will all come into the room.
Our relationship with nature is out of balance. In today's economy, a dead tree is more valuable than a living tree. Extracted minerals are more valuable than living ecosystems. It's time for a new paradigm, where the economy values living systems and our money is directed into a living future. That future is already here. All over the world, family-scale farmers are protecting and regenerating nature. They do it because they love to. We call them producers. They produce living value. They give us clean air, living soils, pure water, and healthy humans. At the same time, we see people and organizations ready to support real change. They want to fund ecological improvement, ensuring a bright green future for all of us. However, producers have had no way to sell their ecological value to us, and we've had no way to reward them for what they do for our environment. But Love to be Bright Green has a solution. We package ecological improvement as a commodity and turn it into digital tokens. And we sell the tokens in the biggest farmers' markets in the world, the financial markets. We do it in 3 stages. First, we measure the ecological improvement that producers have made. Then we turn that living value into digital tokens. Finally, we sell those tokens to people and companies who want to support a greener future. We call our tokens Bright Greens. Bright Greens are unlike any other token out there. That's because every single Bright Green is traceable back to certified ecological improvement. Through Bright Greens, we can all be part of the solution. Bringing together good money with people doing good.
That gives you a little bit of an introduction to the topic that holds us all together in the group of people on the panel today. Because back before Christmas last year, Anne-Marie invited me and my life partner, who wasn't my business partner, Tim, to come and visit her. And she started introducing me to some of her friends and some of the people she knew. And we started talking about Love to be Bright Green, which is the business that makes Bright Greens. At that time, we weren't making Bright Greens. We were doing something a bit different. And we had lots of conversations, really helpful conversations. We did some incredible, beautiful work, very conscious, very thoughtful work. And this group of people kind of came together around this business that is trying to make a new way to value what is essential for life. So fresh air, clean water, living soil, biodiversity, these things we know are essential for us and have not been valued in the economy until now. And so Tim and I have been working for 6.5 years to get this together, to find a system that could actually work, that can make a business, that can be able to scale really fast and that can grow regeneration across the world. And it's been such an important thing for us to have this group of people who really know what they're talking about. First of all, they've been in this world of looking at environmental businesses for years and who have just stood solidly behind us. We've met every week and seen us through some difficult times where we had to change a lot of things and lots of news and lots of new things changing all the time. And so what I'd like to do is just start to introduce you to these people and let's find out why they're doing this and what is so important for them about this kind of movement towards bringing finance to regenerative farming. Can we start with you, Anne-Marie? Anne-Marie is, the thing that I know about Anne-Marie is that she really stands for the truth. She stands for the future. She stands for the kind of values that I think bring us all together as human beings. And she stands very strongly for that. She's somebody who's always willing to challenge people who are not speaking that kind of truth. I think that's the most important thing that I can say about you, Anne-Marie. I think anything else you could introduce for yourself.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'm calling in from Vreeland, a practice we've been doing all the time to really ground ourselves on the earth as we're also in this virtual space. I think why you're speaking about me speaking my truth has to do because I want us to be able to show up fully and to express ourselves and find a way to co-create together with all life forms, starting also, of course, with humans as we're here together, giving form to our lives. And I do that in different contexts, but primarily from the Hague Center for Global Governance, Innovation and Emergence, a movement and foundation that has come out of my work here with the Center for Human Emergence, where I met Lisette, and through which I also have met most of the others that are here, and where we also are really trying to see how can we come together in, as I translate it, connected to the universal heart, and what kind of ways of organizing ourselves and collaborating can serve that. How can our life conditions help us to be, as much as we can, showing up truthfully? Because we know and have experienced that our systems and structures and our agreements, how we speak or how we show up, have impact and have influence on how we can do that. And one of the people that have really helped me and given me so much inspiration to see how the impact of those life conditions and our earliest conclusions that we make in life is Lisette. And Lisette, I would like to introduce you here. We met in 2005, and you touched my heart by being also, in that sense, there's a thread in this. I think the truthfulness is a thread. By having this joint sense of curiosity, who we really are, and who we really are unpacking again and again and again, or lighting up different parts of ourselves. I remember one time you came and sat here and you said, I just want to listen to you because sometimes I see you turn your eyes away and then you're seeing something I'm not seeing. And I didn't know what I was seeing either, but by that invitation and that space we created, we were able to unpack things. So yeah, maybe you want to say a little bit more why you're here and what makes you feel at home at this moment in this call.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, and for me, Anne-Marie, you see distances, you can see around corners that I don't even know there's a corner there, right? So yeah, and our collaboration in almost 20 years has been a joy in my life and a challenge from time to time. So I have been aware of the steering power of money for some 30 years. And I show up in the weekly call because I aim to serve the future and I aim to serve what is life affirming. And as you showed in the clip, what is destructive is very well monetized, but what is life affirming and regenerative is not so well monetized, or, it's different. I am the current chair of an investment co-op called Beuningen that Frank started in the mid-90s. When people really did not know what we were on about, and we ourselves didn't really know because we had no language, we had no models, we had no measuring tools, we had nothing of the professionalism that is in that world now. And it was called Beuningen. It is still called Beuningen. The acronym was Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is Company, because we said if we believe in a world of unity and in a world of life-affirming businesses, we better put our money where our mouth is. And then the wonderful Margaret McGovern came into Frank's life and our lives, and she said, well, let's call it Put Your Money Where Your Meaning Is Community. And Jenny actually also played a role in that, but I will hand over to Frank. Frank, meeting you through Social Venture Network, which was a network of companies that said it can't be true that we're only functioning for profit. That's just not right. And so then we started with people, planet, profit. And at some point there was a fourth P, the P of purpose. What purpose is this company really serving? And it was a wonderful, exciting network. And that's where you and I met, and you had started Beuningen. And I remember our first sessions in your garden, and it was so exciting to invest in companies that we thought are changing the world. It has taken a little longer than we thought it might, but I feel it is happening, and the bright greens are giving it a whole new dimension, which is why I love to be part of this conversation every week. Over to you, Frank.
Thank you, Lisette. You brought me here to this little group, and at first I didn't know what I was doing because I heard so many new things which I couldn't put ends together. But every week speaking together, now for the last 4 months or 5, I slowly start to understand what this new thing is all about. Just 2 steps back, last year we gave a big conference in regenerative farming. This year we gave a big conference about the new economy. And in fact, those two things come together. Ecological improvement comes through regenerative farming. And tokens, digital tokens, is something from the new economy. And we bring those things together. Ecological improvement expressed in a new token, or the ecological assets are the underlying value of the new token. Wow, this is something new. This is something to think about. And the person here on the line is Jenny Elissen, who helped us so much in this new thinking and a new way of going forward. And I'd like to give the word over to Jenny.
Thank you so much, Frank. Well, the reason I joined, and unfortunately, I will catch up later this month because we have some more time together, is that I am most of my time a non-exec in big corporates. And I see that this whole movement can help so much to, as maybe some of you know, there is a lot of compliance and ruling that is now going on around ESGs and the way big companies have to report and corporates have to report. For me, it's crucial that we start measuring the energy as well as the fixed capitals. And we are making a start in corporate life to do that. But this idea can hopefully accelerate that. And so I'm mainly here because I hope to play a role in that, to bridge. I feel that for me, it's also important to have a big compassion for all the big corporates, because they have been, they have been moved into these areas that they don't know yet what to do with. And I hope we not only being fantastically empowering for the farmers and their families, but also for the bigger world that needs this compassion to bridge quite innovative ideas. And I'm here to help with that. So maybe I can give the word to Marlou, who is also doing that.
Thank you, Jenny. Yeah, I've been involved in impact investing most of my adult life, and I actually started with impact investing 30 years ago when I joined Triodos Bank, and we were financing also a lot of organic farmers. And what I noticed is that, let's say, many of these farmers, they're doing a lot of good for the earth, what Sarah was explaining in the movie, but they're actually not paid for that. So there's a lot of sacrifice going on. And I think, well, 30 years later now, it has become so clear that the basis actually of all our value is the soil, is the biodiversity, is the nature. So how can we move the money to the people who are actually protecting this? And maybe not only the farmers. If you think ahead, it could also be people who are protecting the rainforest. So I'm very interested in what we are developing here, because I see a lack now between, let's say, the intention of a lot of investors, as Sarah was explaining in the movie, who want to go into this direction, but there are no instruments yet. There is some experimentation going on, for example, with carbon credits. Secam, a company in Egypt, which is working with organic farmers, are using the carbon credits to reward the farmers for what they're doing. But what Sarah and Tim are developing is so much more and so much more profound. And I'm also interested in bringing this new technique that's underlying the non-fungible tokens into this area. So it's exciting, because I really feel this is something that is going to make it possible for investors to have the money flown to the people who are actually protecting our earth. And it's very stimulating to be part of this group, to see how we can all realize this. So that's why I'm here. And I would like to go to Marcel now.
Thank you, Marlou. Marcel de Berg. I'm living in the Netherlands also. I'm co-founder of the Green Water Cools Collective. I've got myself a background in the institutional investment industry. I worked with Lester Brown, thanks to the Hague Center, and together with Lester Brown, we worked in the Netherlands on setting up Plan B funds, and Lisette played also a vital role in that part. And when I visited Lester with the family a few years ago in Washington, he told me about that the weakest link in civilizations has been water, and not the drinking water, but the long distance transport of water by nature. And that sucked me into the world of biodiversity and how important biodiversity plays an important role in maintaining the water cycle, and we call that the green water cycle. And for that, the bright greens are a crucial element, a very big piece of the puzzle, how to make sure that biodiversity is really valued in it, because biodiversity is not only important for maintaining healthy soils, healthy food, etc., and healthy people, but also it controls the cooling cycle of Earth, the living cooling cycle through to the water. And the biodiversity in the soil produces a very important matter, and that's organic aerosols, what you need for producing clouds. Those clouds cool Earth. So we don't know how important biodiversity really is for our civilization, and bright greens can play a crucial role in connecting all the elements within society, so that the real value of biodiversity is seen by society, and that you can make the investment case viable for all, not only for people, not only for the farmers, but also for institutional investors, for family capital, government subsidies, etc. So what Sarah and Tim is doing is a great job and crucial element. And I think the only person in this group I'm seeing is not as said anything is Tim. So Tim, would love to give you the word, and it's up to you.
Okay, thanks, Marcel. Appreciate that. You know, Sarah and I were at a conference up in northern Queensland last week, and I had the opportunity to do a 2-minute pitch. Now, there's not a lot you can say in a 2-minute pitch, but Sarah encouraged me that there was plenty I could say. So I opened it with a very simple series of questions. I had everybody stand up, and then I asked them to sit down if they hadn't used fresh, clean water today, if they hadn't breathed fresh, clean air today, if they hadn't eaten decent, clean food today. And of course, everyone was standing up. So then I gave them permission to sit down if they were willing to do something about sustaining that. And of course, everyone sat down. But the opportunity to really appreciate what this is about is fundamental. You know, this is not just talking about maybe we should do something about the environment. We have to protect the things that we need for life every day. And it's not just us humans. You know, the animals depend on us. When we push a bulldozer through habitat, we change life for everything that lives there, sometimes to benefit ourselves, to grow a monocultural crop or something. So this really is about us as humans coming together and appreciating that we exist in an ecosystem, that we are life along with all other life, and we all depend on one another. And it's time to really understand that and address that. And the way us humans deal with, you know, how we favor things and how we advantage things and how we push things in the direction we want them to go is to put our money in those directions. That's the simplest and quickest way. If we want a better ecosystems, if we want healthy life, if we want to ensure that our people and our families and our communities and our cities have food and water and clean air, and they are sustainable and resilient for when we are going to be getting these exciting shocks of changing weather and heavier, droughts and floods and fires and famines and who knows what else. When those moments come along, we want to be able to bounce back really quickly from them, not to be suffering from them for a long, long time, because that will cause a lot of pain, a lot of grief, and a lot of loss. So here is our opportunity. I've been in this area for 32 years. All of you have similar experience in this area. We've all been working on this for a long, long time. And for me, the waiting is over. It's time for action. It's time for people to get together and show some leadership. That's why we've created this beautiful product, Bright Greens, as a way for people to vote with their feet and show what they really care about and have an investment. It's not a philanthropic donation. It's actually a thing that should go really well. It should be valuable and it's a useful thing in a portfolio and all those good investment reasons why people will buy this. The fundamental reason that people should buy Bright Greens is that it protects every other investment they could possibly have. Without life, it's not much help having gold or property or shares in a company or any of those things. Let's look after the basics, for heaven's sake. It's so obvious when you put it that way. So that's my voice to this meeting. I deeply believe, we've committed 6.5 years, Sarah and I, to building Love To as a group and really giving everything we've got to resourcing this beautifully and creating something really special. And for all of us, though, it's a reflection of our masterpiece being created, our work that really matters, our purposeful work coming into the world to really express what we're truly about. And I think participating with us in Love To, participating in Bright Greens, gives all of us the opportunity to show what we purposefully believe in and what we really care about. That's something everyone can bring their love to. That's a moment that we can really stand up and live by and stand strong together. And to me, what better adventure? What else would you rather be doing? So that's my 2 minutes worth. I'm delighted to be here and to have the opportunity to speak to you all. And I feel like I'm in really august company here to speak to this panel and also to all of you who are listening. So, right, I guess I pass it back to you now, Sarah or Anne-Marie, whichever one of you would.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tim, for sharing your passion and showing that as well. And I would say so fitting for us here in World Unity Week, where our focus is always on generally positive solutions to some huge challenges. And to be able to stay in that not knowing, Frank, thank you for sharing how we were able to hold that not knowing. And then at a certain point, there are these breakthroughs that are coming and things are arising that might not have happened when we were on our own. Before I go to you, Sarah, because to ask you also to continue what you would like to share, I would just like to say that if the people would like to put anything in the chat, questions or whatever, Hasina is kindly looking at it. She's already putting some links for us, but also looking at some themes that we might be wanting to address in case we get totally taken away by our own conversation. We're aware and want to stay aware of your presence too, and of questions you have. Sarah, please. Take it from there.
I was just reflecting as Tim was talking, how different it is to do business when we're looking to do it this way. One of the most defining things about the way that we worked over the last 6.5 years was that we really had to question everything that we were doing. We couldn't take business as normal. We couldn't think about money as normal. We couldn't think about value as people normally think about it, because none of the systems really seemed to exist clearly to do the thing that we knew needed to be done. And sitting in this group now today draws that together somehow, because I keep hearing the word participate, and I keep using the word participate. This is not two people who've gone to make a business so that we can make lots of money and then exit in 5 years or 10 years time and go and retire on a yacht. It's such a very different thing. And it really is about more and more people participating in something. Sometimes I use the word enterprise because at least in English, it's a much better word than business. We're participating in something that is here to make a really significant change in the world. And there is no way that Tim and I, even just with a really great team in a traditional business sense, would be able to do that. I see that. So very often our farmers, the farmers who we're working with from the first round, they say things to me like, you know, Sarah, it's not just the data, it's not just the actions you do on the farm, it's what actually goes on inside your head and your heart. It's the energy, it's the way that we do things that really makes the difference. And farmers can go out there and do all the right things, but if they don't have the thoughts and the feelings of that, if they don't really care about nature, if they don't have a relationship with nature, it doesn't work. It literally doesn't work. So this is a change not only in how we structure our business or how we put together legal contracts or how we make digital assets instead of traditional, more physical assets, but this is literally a change in how we think about business and how we work together and how we participate in it, because it becomes an expression of the community. And what's very beautiful here, we have 6 people here from the Netherlands and Tim and me from Australia, like completely the opposite ends of the world. And somehow this Netherlands crew has shown up, clearly not by chance, and just stood by us while we were working through some of the most challenging times we've had, because we had to rethink a whole lot of stuff. Just when we thought we'd got a solution, typical business scenario, we had to rethink things. And there was this team of people there every week while we went through that. It's an incredibly demanding thing to have to do. And so what I think would be a really interesting thing to explore, perhaps amongst this group conversation, is this sense of participation and community and how we grow. It's not just about growing the business, it's actually about growing the work, growing the outcomes that the business is about. And how do we help each other? How do we bring more people into that? How do we make this work at this new level of doing business that is so, well, it's very uniting. It's very collaborative. And I think it's really quite different from the way we've done things before. So I'd love to hear from any of you what you are thinking and feeling about that. Lisette.
Yeah, I can, because what I feel we have been exploring is really a system change, because so much of impact is doing less harm, which is good, which is really good and should be done and should be explored, to the max. But what we truly need is to change the system in which we live. And that I feel we have been exploring, and the magic of this group for me also has been that we show up, you report on what you've been doing in a week, which is more than I thought was humanly possible, and each week. And then we kind of ask questions or philosophize or muse about it, and you kind of go away, and next week you come with kind of, oh, we've made this step, we've talked to these people. And so, I think change is very slow until suddenly it is very fast. And things like ChatGPT, which has all of a sudden everybody has access to all the knowledge of all the world, true and false, but we also hold true and false knowledge in ourselves. So but with these kinds of coins, we will all have access to something. So it really shows to me the next level of our collective development. And how to bring that to market. I actually had a very interesting conversation with Peter Blom, who is married to my dear friend, the wonderful Marlou, who warned about connecting the bright greens to a currency, because he said then immediately you get speculation. And there's others who know much more about that. So there again, I think a whole new way is needed to be found.
Marcel, you're on mute.
I think Marlou wants to respond.
Yeah, maybe just to add, because I was in that conversation, and I think, let's say the starting point here is to really get the money flowing also to the people who are so to the regenerative farmers, to the, well, ultimately to people protecting the rainforest and everything you can think of. So that is the main thing, but it's indeed, let's say, always a question, because I've also seen many financial products who were developed with a good starting point, but then ultimately the speculation and the greed comes in. So how to prevent that from happening here? But I think that's also part of our conversation, like how to do it in such a way that, that's not let's say, a likely outcome in the end. And maybe just also to your question, Sarah, going forward, I think it would also, talking about participating, I would also be interested to see if, let's say, people who are on the call right now, who have also been working in this field, if they hear this, how, what thoughts and feelings arises in them, and how do they see this, related to their own work? For example, Common Land, Jasper, I see that you're also here. I don't want to call you out, but Common Land has been working with the 4 values when it comes to regenerative or regenerating land. So I think, let's say, I see that as one of the next steps, that this group that we have right now, that it's growing, and people who are also working in this field, how they can join and sort of collectively create more on what the future wants us to develop.
And there's a question in the chat is being asked, how can we each do our part? So that plays really nicely to what you're asking there, Marlou, that every single person who has that feeling to contribute in some way, it's a really good question to ask, what can I do? And actually that's really what Tim and I did. We just said, what can we do? Marcel, you looked like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was agreeing with Lisette about the system change, and going back to the question, how can we do our part, everybody themselves. I think the next level will be that we show the world what can be done. At this moment, the world is talking about things, IPCC, policy in the Netherlands, etc. People are talking. But when you can show what is possible, then you can give a real perspective to the people, a real action perspective. The nice thing is that Lisette already talked about ChatGPT. We are now working on getting the principles that are based within regenerative agriculture, showing the effects of it, and then going to the design principle, and then going to the decision principle, and showing the world, if you have this piece of land, this is possible, and this is what needed, and this is the amount of money that we need. This is how we have to allocate the revenues so that it becomes a healthy system. And then the world is now going so fast that you can really show in real time. And if somebody is blown away by ChatGPT, then I would say have a look at Omniverse of NVIDIA, because with that tool you can show the real time how the world would look like in biodiversity, real time on the computer. So imagine that you have the bright greens, you have got all the knowledge of regenerative, you've got the knowledge of ChatGPT, the knowledge of the principles, the design, the commitment of investors, etc. Then you can design your landscape in a very healthy way, looking from all kinds of stakeholders. And perhaps then we have the sound sense that we're not going to speculate, because then you would see the real value. And then you also see when you're going to speculate, perhaps you will ruin the ecosystem. So in the last 6 weeks, things go so rapidly on AI, etc. Things go even faster. So it's a very exciting world, and the bright greens that fits in perfectly with how it's set up in a blockchain and in the knowledge center. So, well, it's an amazing time we're living in, and I think when we work together on in open and transparent, the bright greens can contribute to that. So, very exciting.
Jenny, maybe you want to share something. I heard Marcel say a few things that made me see you. I saw you light up.
Course, yes. Yes, well, I'm a big believer in technology, and I think that artificial intelligence indeed can help us to create alternative realities that we don't see now yet. And that ties into what Tim was doing at his conference, that first of all, you want to seduce people into new norms, because the problem is that because we don't know exactly what's true and what's not true anymore, because we are living in a very complex world. It's very important, I feel, that we tempt people to really assess themselves into these norms. And I truly believe that technology can help us with that, because it's so much more objective than we are. So that could be very worthwhile. Another thing, one of the participants that's not here now, Henry Mentink, he has also done something remarkable that I really supported. And that's that he, by example, is challenging the norm of who is the earth. Is it normal that we pay for our land? Is it normal that we pay for the right to use air? Is it normal that we pay for water? So there is also it's not a small thing, it's a big thing. But I'm sure that making it practical by doing this Love to Bright Dreams is that people can see and experience how it can work. And that's why this is so important to me. Because if there's not an example, then it stays very abstract, although that's also very true. But then hopefully norms will start to change. And that's also why I mentioned earlier that I think corporates can have a very, very important role to play in this, because they, in combination with their compliance, the way they have to be compliant with ESGs, this might also be a very good way for them to connect it to NFTs. And of course, NFTs can be described in many ways, also without profit, or giving it as we do in the co-op at Beuningen. You can create all kinds of rules that you say, we don't want to take this level of profit. We want to redistribute it to the sector, or things like that. So there's many ways possible. So yeah, I truly feel that making a practical case is very helpful in continuing it. And for me, the adventure of doing that in AI would be fantastic, Marcel, so I'm in. But also making it very practical, because of the case you're making, Sarah, is also very, very nice. And I think we need many.
Yes, yes. It would be a really good conversation. We were talking today about companies and where the opportunities lie, which companies are moving forward, which companies are really reluctant, what are they really looking for? I started to get a bit of a perspective of what they're looking for in Australia, the ones who are talking about this kind of thing. My suspicion is that it's way stronger in Europe because you've got legislation coming and there's so much more pressure there. We tend to be a bit comfortable, kind of a bit lazy here, I think, in Australia. So that would be a really interesting conversation that we can have perhaps in a few weeks' time. Frank, do you have something?
In the chat, we're seeing quite a few responses about how and when can we act, what can we do, etc., etc. So there's something about the timeline on the one side. There's also about the perspective, I would say, and also our perspective, of course, to September. But I'm just I'm just thinking about, I'm aware of the time that Jenny, you'll just be here for another, let's say, 8 minutes. So I just want to, if there's anything else that you would really like to voice and address, that might be first something to speak about.
No, not at the moment. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Anne-Marie, there are also people in the audience that I can see who've, some of them have already made that decision to participate, at least in one of the ways that they can participate. And it might be interesting to hear. So I know when I flicked through before, we have maybe 1 or 2 producers here, regenerative farmers who are already part of Love to be Bright Green. We have some people here who have actually bought Bright Greens and have spoken very eloquently about the actual experience of doing that. So it's not just, oh, I go and buy this digital asset thing, but what's the experience of participating? Kind of like, it seems to be something more. I know I've bought some myself, although it's our company, so to speak. And it's just such a pleasure. I just love buying them. It's just, it gives me such a kind of good feeling inside myself. So we could also maybe bring in 1 or 2 people, if you want to, from the audience.
Go ahead.
Shall we do that? I think that I saw Anne.
Lisette, you want to maybe wait? Lisette,
I see that Dan Kaplan has raised his hand for quite a long time.
Yes, yes.
Dan, do you want to say something? You just need to unmute yourself, Dan.
There.
Yep.
First, I want to thank Sarah for inviting me here and listening to this conversation. This world hasn't made any sense to me for many decades. That goes back to high school, when I had conversations with several people back in the 60s. And what I'm hearing here makes a lot of sense to me. And what I can contribute as an artist and writer is I've been pondering this for decades and how I can bridge these things and how I can effectively motivate, inspire, create the changes that are necessary. And I see where the world's going right now, and it's unsustainable. So I am in the process of writing a memoir, Warrior of Humanity. Could be transposing this book into screenplays for movies. I do have film connections. And if all goes well, and I do have connections throughout the planet, I just had an exchange with Andrew Harvey. He lives 15 minutes from me, and plus many, many others. And this has been going on since I met Deborah Poneman that was in 2009. And so I'm creating a platform, these connections that I feel are, and also what I've been feeling in my heart and soul for all these decades. And now I feel like it's beginning to come to fruition. And it's such a breath of fresh air for me. And if all goes well, we're talking about many millions of dollars. And so as a creative person, this is my expertise. This is what I specialize in. And so as I made a point years ago to you, Sarah, to you and Tim, so we have all these incredible things happening in the world, but now they have to merge and come together. And this is the collaboration and the energy that's created from this can make the dent that's necessary, that they can inspire many others and get the ball rolling in this direction, which is imperative. I know this, I've been feeling this, but how do you bridge this with the world? So I am totally moved by all this. I can feel it. I've been feeling this for a long, long time, and I'm 70 years old now. So the time I was.
Thank you so much.
So I just want to I know I'm going on and on about things, but
yes, no,
you know, and I have my work cut out for me, but now I've been feeling this for a long time, and now I'm beginning to see how things can come together and work.
Thank you, Dan, for that hopeful message, and I can also feel your passion and pain, and I must say, we see that, we know, I would even say at a deep level, we know that the importance of your work as artists and writers, and really bringing these new stories, old stories, ancient stories, but the story of now actually into form in a different way. So thank you for that contribution. And so if we do bring in a few more people, please be very mindful of your time, as we are with many. Jenny, would you like to say anything more before? Thank you, Dan. No? Okay. I see Petra.
You're going. Oh, Petra.
Please unmute yourself, Petra.
Yes. So I'm a small investor, first-time investor, and I bought also bright greens. And for me, it's a really emotional investment. Besides the money, a few years ago, I looked into the possibilities to invest money that would come into me, I knew. And everything I looked into, there were misuse, exploitation, and I don't want to be invested in those things. Everything I could invest it didn't feel good. And suddenly Sarah introduced Love To and Bright Green, and I finally feels good to be part of this world and to invest something, to give my money, be invested, and something good happens with it. So thank you.
Thank you, Petra. I know there are questions in the chat about how people can participate. Obviously, what Petra's talking about, when she bought Bright Greens, that's one way that people are participating. I know that there are probably some people here who want to know how to get involved at the level maybe of the kind of farming and land regeneration level. That is most likely to happen later in the year. We're not quite ready for the next round yet.
So that will be in World Unity in the September Peace Week, perhaps.
Maybe, I was probably a bit later than that, but it's coming. Okay. It's coming. So you kind of need to track with us. There's something I'd like to say, and then I'll bring in a couple of other people. One of the things that I think is that we've really had to rethink, and I feel like I'm only just learning about this now. I feel quite clumsy probably in it. And this is the kind of thing you're much better at in World Unity Week, is that how do we create a system whereby people can participate because they want to? People want to be a part of this movement, but in a way where we can also do business and do the things we need to do because we have to focus on that. That's our responsibility when we're founding and running a business. And one of the principles that Tim and I have come up with time and time and time again is that our job is to make a system that gives other people the freedom to use their creativity. So people don't have to come to us all the time to say, oh, can I do this? Can I do this? It's more that what we're doing enables you, initially, especially farmers and some business people, and then later other people, it enables people to do more of what they love to do. It's called Love To for a reason. And so we've always wanted this energy where everything wasn't relying on us. And the tradition in business is you go and talk to the owner or the founder because they have the most power, and that's the way that it works. And the whole power distribution in this kind of business is so different, and it's very, very new, I think, for us. And so the creativity of the people around Love to be Bright Green and the people who are interested in it becomes a very important part of the business. That's what I see. I'm wondering, Catherine, would you like to say something? Oh, maybe I can.
Just adding to you, Sarah, because you said it's an important part of the business, but it feels to me it's also a movement.
Yeah.
It's a movement also.
It's a movement without againstness. Most movements have always formed around an enemy.
Absolutely.
And
it's a movement for, and
it's
as
a
part
movement for Earth. It's a movement for protection of what's most precious on this planet. And it's a movement for the future, for a thriving future for all of us. For me, I feel so united around that. Catherine.
Yes, that's also, yeah. Go ahead, Catherine.
Yeah, I invested all my money in gold 20 years ago to bridge the coming times that are now, because I knew that this was coming. And just a few weeks ago, I changed some of the gold, not all, but a lot, into bright greens. And this is the moment I bought them, I had the feeling that the thing where I bought the gold out of fear changed into a place in myself where I was like becoming very powerful. And because I suddenly had the chance to change something. There was so much love instead of fear in this bright greens that it is a beautiful feeling to be part of this.
Thank you, Catherine. It's a very, we sometimes talk about bright green gold, and you were the living example. You turned your gold bright green. It was like a very beautiful moment for us. Frank.
Yeah, Sarah, maybe is there a farmer on the call who can tell his perspectives? We heard now two investors, but from the other side.
There may even be two. Andrew, is the Di that is here, is that Di, who's one of our producers? And Andrew Laurie, if you'd be willing to speak, that would be wonderful. Yep.
It helps if you raise your hand, because then it's easier for the spotlights to find you.
There's Andrew and Di.
Andrew, please go ahead.
Oh, hello everyone. It's exciting to hear everything that's been said so far. It's taken us, when I say us, my family, 20 to 30 years to put the skills together to get to where we are now. The journey's always seemed to have been in the right direction, and the potential I can feel from the energy that's there. It gets worldwide energy into the piece of land that I get to put my feet on, and the exciting part is that I can duplicate what we've done. We can continue to roll it out exponentially. And I really love that comment about bright greens being disconnected from speculation, because I also have a toe in the water with carbon credit units. And the speak about pricing this week was that emitters will buy so many premium ones and then fill their portfolio with the cheapest ones they can get. So they sell the story of the good ones they bought and then fill the rest of their requirements with the cheaper ones, it scares me. But bright greens does nothing but excite me.
Thanks, Andrew. Di, can you unmute yourself? It looks like you're in the car, but you're here.
Yes, thanks, Sarah. Yes, we are in a car at the moment, but just want to express our gratitude bringing together with the Bright Greens and enabling an opportunity for us producers on the ground who are working with natural systems on a daily basis. And we've just got that privilege of being exposed to all the elegantly natural solutions that are presenting themselves in our environment on how to, work with so many of these issues that are becoming global problems. And just seeing the restoration of the biodiversity, seeing the restoration of water cycles, seeing the restoration of landscape and ecosystem function, and to be able to communicate with that with the world, and how it is a very simple and process to go through, provided you persisted, committed, and you love doing it, and you put your whole heart and soul into it. I think the opportunity that Love To is providing for us to expand that, grow with it, and fast track some of the capabilities is exciting, and to be able to bring a lot more people on board with us, because there seems to be a lot of people that want to have that connection with the land and the opportunity to work with it with care and respect. But just things like Love To is what enables that. So thank you so much.
I'm wondering, Andrew and Di, I've become aware as I go around speaking to people all the time about this, that many people don't realize, I think many people are in such a gloomy place about the environment, they don't really realize how much it's possible to change. And I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about how much can change and over what kind of time period from your experience, because you're both really experienced in this. Andrew, do you want to go first?
The changes that we've seen on the ground are mostly around, I suppose, tree population. So fauna from tiny little insects and lizards, and brings birds, and it just, one thing grows to another and grows to another, and that's the most exciting part we've seen. And through letting trees grow, we haven't lost any carrying capacity with the livestock that we work with to turn those landscapes around. That's been the exciting part for me, and that's, I mean, it has been across 20 odd years, but it seems pretty rapid to me.
Thank you. And Di?
Yes, I guess as a mixed farmer, so we do crops and livestock, what's been really interesting is on taking on very, very degraded landscapes with, compacted, wind-blown, wind erosion and water eroded land. That first year, we're putting a crop into it and using the worm liquid and the compost extract and the microbiome from the animals, we can actually feel the soil beneath our feet starting to breathe. So after a 12-month period, to get those air spaces back into the soil, the capacity to hold water and to start to function again, getting those small water cycles, and then eventually generating enough of the native vegetation return. We see a lot of the native herbs and grasses returning, and of course then providing habitat for all the different insects and so forth, but putting out those bacterial aerosols for the rain cloud formation and so forth across a large area of their landscape. All those things are really exciting, but that very first year we can start to see that process change, which is pretty incredible really from the starting point that we have.
Amazing. I wish that more people knew these stories, because it gives so much hope, and we need to hear that. Tim, there's a question in the chat. Ben's asking, or somebody, does the price of the bright greens fluctuate, and if so, how?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Ben. Right now, we are issuing bright greens, so we're doing the primary sales round, and we don't have a secondary market system for that just now. So for the short period of time, for the next few months, they won't fluctuate. They will be at a fixed price of Australian $5.50, which at the moment is $3.64 US. That number comes from the calculation out of all of the responses from all of the farmers in the first round. I won't go into algorithms and things now, but suffice to say that that's a calculated number, not a made up number, that reflects a rate of return that makes it worthwhile for farmers to do ecological improvement on their land when compared to any other industry that they could do on their land. So that price actually makes it worthwhile and competitive to do ecological condition improvement. And so that's a good starting place. I think it'll probably go up over time. The way that it will go up is that while we're issuing these, we're looking to create a secondary market in the commodities market space. So we're not there yet, but we are taking that direction. So farmers grow wheat and wool and grains and beef and all sorts of other things that are already sold in commodity markets. And growing ecological condition improvement is just another thing that they grow on their land that's a commodity that can be sold. It's more important in our view than the others perhaps, but it's still, you know, the point is that it can use that same pathway, that same system that people are familiar with ecological products being grown from the land. So as we get into a commodity market, we'll be able to have a trade there. We'll be able to have a market price. There'll be buyers and sellers of primary and secondary stock. So farmers will be able to sell them themselves in that market. We'll be able to sell them as a mutual, and people who have bought them can resell them just like a normal, they would sell another, you know, they could buy and sell other assets on the same marketplace. And that also allows all the normal commodity things like derivatives and futures to be constructed by other players in the market that should really help support industry getting involved and taking an interest in these as assets. So the secondary market will be determined by the typical supply and demand profiles. And that's what we're working towards now. We're actually starting conversations with substantial specialist commodity market operators really now, you know, in the last couple of weeks. And we're working from the specialty niche ones to the very largest commodity markets exchanges in the world. One in particular, the Chicago Board of Trade, has on their website that they transact $1 quadrillion worth of contracts every year. So that's $1,000 trillion worth of contracts every year. It's a mind-boggling number. But when in our little video we talk about going to the financial markets as the biggest farmers market in the world, that's what we mean. And that's where the secondary market price will come from.
Thank you, Tim. I was chatting with Di yesterday, and she was talking about Netherlands farmers because they've been very much in the news recently. And she was saying, well, you know, what about what's going on there? I think it'd be really interesting to turn the attention towards Europe, since we've got such a strong European group here, and hear a little bit about how you feel that this kind of approach, or what can be done in Europe to expand the movement that we're talking about here. Who wants to answer that one? Who wants to start?
I can try.
I think Frank wants to. Oh well, go ahead, Marcel. But then Frank, I think, also wants to say something.
Let's go, Frank. Go ahead.
No, I think the people who really know this answer on this question is I saw Bart van Beuzenkom on the line. I don't know if he's still there. Otherwise, Jasper Bartels from Commonland, who could also answer that.
He had to leave a little while ago,
He had
Frank.
to leave as well. And Bart van Beuzenkom also.
Who was the first one? How do I spell his first name?
Bart van
Is that Martin K?
Beuzenkom. He's gone as well. Yeah, they are so Dutch. They would be the right persons to ask, as far as I know, on the call. Maybe there are other people on the call.
I think they had to leave.
And maybe I can give a try, Sarah, because one of the main issues I would say here in the Netherlands is that, let's say, if you take farming has become so efficient. And you have to distinguish between farming and livestock. But let's say the main issue is that living on a small piece of land, farming had to become so efficient to actually make a living that many of the farmers are now stuck in the system. And the big question is, how can we change that? How can they, let's say, also generate an income with less of the livestock, for example, and work more with regenerative farmers? So there's this whole discussion about what is actually a viable business model for the future. And I think one of the questions is, again, about is how do you reward the farmers for their work? So from that perspective, I would say that bright greens could also be a solution in that
Absolutely.
search for these new business models. So I think it's absolutely worth exploring this further.
Very interesting. Marcel?
If you look at the Netherlands and in Europe, the big underlying question is the water cycle, because the droughts in Europe are so enormous because we have destroyed the biotic pump. And how did we destroy the biotic pump? Because we have large-scale agriculture with no life in the soil. And the other thing is that we don't value biodiversity. So if you look from an institutional point of view, from a universal investor, then you see here a system risk that's so huge that it will hurt your portfolio. But also that the solution of regenerating the land, the biodiversity, if you look at the investments that it will need to regenerate the land and how it will offset the risk, it's peanuts to regenerate the land, and it offsets this amount of risk. So the first step is that you have to think about the real value of biodiversity. And at this moment, investors don't see the real value of biodiversity. It's about the birds and the bees and they are thinking about, okay, we have global warming that is destroying biodiversity. And they don't see that we have destroyed biodiversity, and that caused also less cooling, and that caused also global warming. So first is about the mindset, and if you don't see the real value of biodiversity, you will never see the value case. Of course, you will have opportunities in the land where you can regenerate the land, and that has a business case. But the business case for society is so huge that when you see it, it becomes a no-brainer to regenerate the land. A real no-brainer. But first you have to see the real value of biodiversity. And that is what's needed in the Netherlands, because it's only focusing on the values of the present system, and that the farmers are stuck in a bad system. Yeah? But we need to see the real value, and then take everybody to a next level and make sure that the farmers will contribute to that new solution, and that you reward those farmers also. And then bright greens can play a very interesting role in it. But first we have to see the real value of biodiversity, and we only see this part of the value, while the real value is this big or even much bigger. And that's the real issue. And in Europe, when we see it, we will restore the water cycle. And that's...
Thank you, Marcel. And I think that story about seeing the biodiversity is something that is important in this context, but it's also important in many other contexts. And if I look at World Unity Week, for example, the many different topics, but also the unitive narrative that we're using, what we're doing in the Holo movement is all about really acknowledging the diversity and the importance of that within the unity. So, so in that sense, that gives for those that are not specifically perhaps in this financial market an opportunity to already contribute by making that, bringing out that message and making it very visible and clear how in many multiple ways it's an important part of the puzzle. We have Ulrich who put his hand up. I'm just noticing the time that perhaps we can speak with you, Ulrich. Ben had some questions also, and then we can do a closing round. But Frank, do you want to say something now in what we were speaking about now, or shall we first ask Ulrich to share?
Oh, Ulrich, absolutely.
Thank you. So I was at the at one Demeter farm in Germany the last weekend, and it was the farm where Demeter was founded in the 100 years ago nearly. And they're struggling now that they are, so there are a lot of seeds like this in Germany, like these farms, and they are fighting to survive at the moment. So they have a lack of the markets, because since the prices are up in energy and everything in Germany, the people are not buying more organic. So there are farms, they can be supported at the moment now. What they also suffer now at the moment is people to help them. So they have not enough people to work on the land, what is already in a good condition, but they have not farmed all their land, what they can do this year to put crops on it. And so they're looking for people. So there are these seeds we can preserve in Europe at this moment, and to help them, to support them to sustain this and to share this knowledge what they have over 100 years now to grow from there. So in Germany we have a lot, but they are lack of workforce and money at the moment, you can say. And at the same time, the stocks of organic crops or organic corn, grains and everything are full. So that's what we are here at the moment in Germany.
Thank you, Ulrich. You can see the complexity and therefore the need for so many different perspectives and skills and people all collaborating on this. We need to pull it all together for the whole planet, basically. I mean, that's what we're doing.
Of course, and I love this idea from Bright Green, so I bought also a few, so it was a really good feeling. And I love this idea to how it works and what you can do with it to honor what the people did before, and not like you have it when you now change to organic farming here in Europe. You have to wait for 5 years and spend a lot in it that you can live from it. So that's a really good, that I love it. I really love it, this idea.
Thank you. Anne-Marie, did you say that Ben, do you have some questions?
Yeah, so Lisette also had a question. Lisette, you might want to voice it.
Well, I would love to have to put a question to Andrew and Di, because I have also invested, and I've been assuming that the whole process of measuring the annual ecological improvement is well thought out. And I would also even go further and ask, is it helpful to you to apply this tool in order to qualify for the Bright Greens?
Which is also a very important prototypical question, I would say, because whenever we go into other markets, that, how can we find these measurements that really help us move forward and not keep us back? Yes, great question. Thank you. Andrew or Di?
All right, do you want to go first? Are you there?
I'm muted.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic to have those opportunities, because then we can also direct more of the focus towards those outcomes, which is what it's all about at the end of the day, having the ecological outcomes being front and centre. So Tim has brought some more measurement tools to us that we didn't have previously, and that can give us a greater record of what's been going on. Mostly before has been sort of a lot of paddock work and observations of recognising different biodiversity returns and having to seek out scientists that are familiar with different insects and birds and flora and fauna, but also having soil tests and so forth as well, which are all very time consuming. But by pulling it all together with Tim's metrics, it's going to have a more consistent framework to operate within.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, a lot of the data was passed on, so we had quite a bit of it. It's a bit like Di said, it's nice to have it collated and verified. It's just nice to get realigned with the economics of running the business isn't the complete focus. It's once we start shifting our focus to carbon in the soil and the air we breathe and the life in the soil and the trees and the clean water, it changes the way we look at it as an overall enterprise. I hope I didn't ramble too much then.
I thank you, Andrew. I'm very moved by your question. I have tears in my eyes because I really feel, your love for what you do and for the planet and for your soil, and you also died. It's so helpful to hear how, such a tool is not, we have to report, but it's really can be helpful and a reminder of what it's all about. Thank you.
So shall we go to Ben? And then I think we probably need to look at our 99-day mission before we finish, don't we?
I had just a question, I suppose, just being devil's advocate around the ecological improvements and how they are. I know there's a system of valuing them, and that's something that is really important. But how are they in terms of working with a lot of goodwill? So I'm almost reluctant to even ask this question, but I suppose just looking at how to scale this, how is it vetted, and how do we ensure that the ecological improvements, not from our two beautiful souls who are here with us today, but as we scale this globally, how do we ensure there's rigor in that process when you're talking about value and people's money? It's going to be something, Tim, I'm sure you've thought a great deal about. Love to hear your answer.
Well, thanks, Ben. Well, the two that are here with us are actually no exception. They're the leaders in this. Andrew and Megan and Ian and Di have been right at the forefront of building this with us. And in fact, when we had some early stage issues about correctly measuring things on their land, it was Ian and Di that jumped in and helped us to understand exactly what was going on. So we have a combination where we can gather a huge amount of data about the important factors of the properties that are being managed based on where they are, whether they're in vulnerable ecosystems and whether they have threatened or endangered species on them. So that's public domain knowledge. But we can also source satellite imagery that goes back as far as 30 years. And we actively evaluate the work that these farmers have done on their land, on the land that they've been managing in their own time. So it's not something that's carried on forever. It's not something that can be sold to the next buyer of the land. This is personal work that's being recognised and rewarded. But we use satellite imagery tools. We use a whole bunch of correlations with weather data. We use new forms of satellite imagery that allow us to check things, and we can get a half-metre pixel measurement of any half-metre square anywhere on the Earth every 24 hours if we need it. So it's quite remarkable how technology has come forward to enable this verification process. We use geolocated photographs to prove biodiversity, loads and loads of things that we do. And then we also have a process of local trusted agents who witness the claim that's made by the farmers and recognise that they're not verifying that all those things are true, but they're verifying that the claim has been made and that it's reasonable and valid. So there's quite a lot of checking of the process. There's an audit process, and there's also an escrow process so that we can look at things for 12 months and make any adjustments if we find any anomalies, but that hasn't happened at all yet. So it's a very thorough, scientifically sound process. We look at 142 different data metrics, and that's another protection, of course, is that, if you're saying yes to 140 things that you do in a regenerative farming process, you're probably doing it. There's no way you can fake that number. And that's really it's beyond a trust-based system. It's integrity and honourable people doing it, but it's the old thing of trust and then verify, and that's pretty much the way we're doing it. So I hope that answers the question,
That's
Ben.
great. That's great, Tim. One quick follow-up, very quick question. Are the producers paid in bright greens or cash?
Everyone gets bright greens, including my company and Sarah's company, and then we all have to sell bright greens together for all of us to do well.
Got it.
So no one gets paid before anybody else. We all get bright greens for creating the value that we create, and we all sell them together. So it's as fair as we could possibly make it.
Thank you. It's been an extraordinary discussion. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
I think this this sensing in, this looking at and seeing how and learning together and looking back and then looking forward. That is how to do that in a different way, and not by judging each other, but with the intention to further learn and to further develop, is also part of what we are exploring in the series of large-scale events like World Unity Week and Peace Week. How can we improve? How can we invite each other to come into that kind of way of working together? And also, how can we combine our strengths? How can we let our spark, ourselves spark and then see? And one of the ways that we are experimenting with this year, is to invite us all to formulate missions for the 99 days that it takes from now to September, when we will be doing the next large-scale event, and connecting with each other as well. So by asking ourselves, what is our mission for this coming period of time that contributes to a better world? And can we share that, make that visible, which requires sometimes some vulnerability, but that's bringing us into the heart. That's one of the ways that we can really move forward into this new way of working. And by sharing and showing that also, it's able for others to come together and work together and to collaborate in a new form. So that's why we are calling all of us in this online setting, and also in the Holo movement, to see how we can share our missions and collaborate on another level. So we've been speaking about that ourselves. What as this is the group that's coming together, as we keep checking, is it of value? Do we come together? Yes, it is. Then what will our next steps be? What would we like to formulate as missions? Is what we've been speaking about. And I wonder whether we can just touch upon that now, and if any of our speakers in the panel would like to share something about that, and I'll just let Andrew and Dai go back into the larger group whilst we explore that. Thank you for your contributions. And feeling you all, by the way, in the whole room, witnessing this conversation around our missions, because that's part of why we're doing this experiment.
Well, I really want to jump in because I have such a strong sense of mission, and Ben told me about this a couple of months back, and I was thinking, oh, what's the mission? What's the mission? I knew I was going to be really busy and there'd be a lot on, but in the last week, a mission formed for me, and I know that it will be part of this group. Other people here may have other missions as well, but I was asked a question, and it was suggested to me that I ask this question everywhere, basically. And the question is, how do we create a healthy, resilient market for ecological assets? So it's a bigger question than just how do we sell bright greens or do whatever we're doing, but it's how do we create a market for this kind of thing so that the financial markets are really putting their weight into regeneration and conservation of nature. And my intention with this mission over the next 99 days is to ask the question to so many people that by the end of the 99 days, that market is already forming, so that the question becomes the solution. That's my mission.
Yeah, I'm 100% with Sarah on that. I want people to be asking every day what we're having for dinner and what have we done about bright greens today. It's a daily thought.
So I can continue from there, because I'm also on a mission to kind of bring this way of thinking further into the world. And I've been a long time vegetarian, but I commit to, honoring plant life on this earth more consciously. And so I will do 10 vegan meals a week and really honoring the plant. And I can't yet completely leave the butter out. That's just a thing. But so there's a small practical mission within the larger mission of, this movement.
Yeah, let's say follow you, Sarah, in your mission, because I really like the way you put it. The question becomes the answer. So I'm having regular conversations with mostly women in it's working with institutional investors. So I'll take on your mission and
wonderful.
Ask that question in those groups, and let's see if the question indeed becomes the answer. But that's what we're aiming for.
Oh, please report back. I'm very curious.
I'll do the same in that mission of spreading the word that everybody should know about this. And in fact, this Friday I have a big gathering here about digital currencies, and we'll bring this in. This is
wonderful.
The thing.
Thank you, Frank.
I only like to add to it that I really like to drink a real cool beer when Heineken serves real biodiversity in their beer, so green water inside, because that's what should be needed. Yeah, and we are also vegan at our place. Yeah, but we agree that we should eat animals to save the world, because those animals we need those animals to contribute to the vital life into the soil. Without the animals, it will not happen. As long as you don't like bears in our street, we have to take care of that the animals don't become a plague. And you have to take care of them in a decent way, but we have to eat them. But at the moment we are vegan because we don't like the industry. But
yeah. So you mean you want to eat the animals that have been treated well and that are really we really partner with in life, yeah?
Yeah, because they are part of the circle of life, and we have to treat them.
Yeah. Well, my mission is clearly to support these kind of conversations and to see how we really can co-create and collaborate, and to take care of myself in order to take care of others, in order to take care of place, in order to take care of our planet, and to connect that in the cosmic heartbeat, I would say. And I would just like to invite Hasina to also come in, because she's behind the scene helping us all the time. But I would like you to also formulate a mission and to thank you in this group for all the work that you've been doing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. My mission is to align with my deepest truth and be able to come from that space of love. And it's not separate from what we're discussing here, because when we come from that, we can be aligned in all our actions, whether we believe in being vegan or whether we believe that animals' vital life will nourish the earth and we need to eat animals treated well. Just doing that and conveying that message to other people, to be free of opinions, expectations, circumstances, and everything else, so that they're aligned with who they really are at their deepest level.
Wow, thank you. Well, we've come to the end of our time. So I would like to put us all on gallery view, actually, and see how we can just say thank you for all the participants who have been here. And we will continue. We hope to show up in some form in Peace Week and in Mighty Network in between. Thank you all of this group and for my friends for showing up and sharing all the time. I'm really very, very grateful for that. And also, of course, to Ben and the whole team of World Unity Week to create this container and help us spread the message. And Sarah will be joining us soon in the Netherlands. So we will definitely be working on our mission here.
Yes.
My word is gratitude.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a great forum. Thank you.